I'm Realtor Deb Tomorrow, and this is At Home in Bloomington, brought to you by Karen Rostel, Ruoff Home Mortgage. We profile the people, places, and resources that make Bloomington, Bloomington, and help you live your best life. At Home in Bloomington. Hello, and welcome to At Home in Bloomington. I am your host, Realtor Deb Tomorrow, here as always with the lovely Miss Karen Rostel, best damn lender in the state of Indiana.
Hey, Deb.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. I'm a little frazzled today, I guess.
Why is that?
I don't know. There's a lot of traffic in town. I have no idea if it has to do with some IU game or something that's happening today, but I could not get around today.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, that's good to know because I got to head to the other side of town as soon as we're done.
Beware.
Recording. Excellent. Well, better than a couple episodes ago when we were recording in the 100-year monsoon, and then I had to get across town, and it took me quite some time, and I believe that I took my shoes off and forded a small creek.
Oh my gosh.
Because I am that dedicated. I was on it. I kept texting the person who wanted to see the house, like, are you sure? And he's like, yeah, I want to see it.
It took me about 45 minutes to get home, too, and I thought, am I going to come home to a flooded basement?
Ugh.
And we were okay, but that was wild.
You know, what you going to do? Okay, so we've been joking with you, as any regular listeners of the show know, thank you for being regular listeners, that we tend to keep Karen in the dark about what our guest is here to talk about. Mm-hmm. And so we've been giving her a hard time and telling her it's NASA.
Which I clearly know it's not, okay, but I'm just saying it better have something to do with space. And
okay, well, you know, here's the thing. I feel like the last few shows that we've recorded, you've ended up, this is kind of coincidental, you've ended up having more knowledge about the guests than me, because like we did one about the Scouts BSA, mm-hmm. and you were a den leader, right? And we did one recently about Wonder Lab, and you had volunteered there in college, and so you have more experience with Wonder Lab. So I'm really wondering if you have any knowledge of today's guest and what she's here to talk about.
I'm going to say no. I'm going to say no. Yeah.
I'm going to say no too, but let me ask you, okay, do you hike much?
No.
Do you spend much time outdoors?
No.
No. Nice family walks in the woods with your dog?
No, but once I did go on a hike, and I'm not kidding, with my son, and everyone thought I was like, are you sure you're okay? Like, we went hiking by Griffey Lake, and I'm like, yeah, we're fine. I just wanted to go and do that. Tony was out of town. He's like,
not like you looked like you were going to die from doing it, but just that they were like...
The fact that I drove over, parked, and then got out and voluntarily walked into the woods. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So. Well, I think today's show, here's hoping we inspire you to continue to do that a little bit more. I think that's our goal. So I'm going to introduce Abby Henkel, who is the communications director for, drumroll please, Sycamore Land Trust.
Oh, okay.
So,
yeah, no, I don't know anything about that.
Okay, well, welcome.
Thank you.
Then you've come to the right place because we know nothing about nothing, right? So let's start with the basics. What is a land trust?
Oh, goodness. In summary, I guess a land trust is a conservation nonprofit that preserves land, protects it for forever. And they exist all over the world. We cover southern Indiana.
Okay. And so not just, because I always thought it was just Monroe County.
I was going to say the same thing. I always see that one area over on the east side, and I'm drawing a blank right now.
Are you thinking of the Cedars Preserve? It's on High Street.
Yes.
It's got a big old sign. Yes. You're going to the Y. Yeah, that's a small property that we protect.
Okay.
We actually cover 26 counties.
Oh.
But we were founded in Monroe County, so we have like 8 of our 16 public nature preserves are here.
So what I thought was interesting was that I wanted to encourage people to sort of expand what they're thinking, because I'm sure that if anyone's heard of Sycamore Land Trust, they do have 1 or 2 locations that come to mind. Certainly you have over 100 locations, is that right?
Yeah, we have over 80 properties, I guess over 100 projects that we've done and almost 10,000 acres that we protect.
Wow. And so what was interesting to me that I didn't really think about as I was doing a little bit of research for this show was that you've got properties that are just sort of plunked down in the middle of neighborhoods.
Yeah, it's kind of remarkable, especially when we started 29 years ago. We would acquire I think our first parcel was 40 acres. We'd get a 12-acre parcel. Now we try to add on to things like Yellowwood or Brown County State Park or Bean Blossom Creek Conservation Area is kind of one of our big focuses.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can see things all over town.
Yeah, so there was one, because I was just looking at the different, if you go to your website, you can click and look at, all the different locations, and that's a really useful site. Tell me the website address.
It's just sycamorelandtrust.org.
There you go. Easy enough. Because it'll tell you where you can park and, anything else you might need to know about visiting the sites. But there was one, I was like, what's this? And I clicked on it, and it's sort of like a lot up in the Marlin Hills neighborhood, which is up north, kind of near Griffey Lake.
Yeah,
and it was like there was a lady who took a lot of pride in her. She had, I don't know if she had 2 lots because she had a house and then a lot next to it. And when she passed away, I think she left the lot to be cared for because she didn't want anything to happen to it.
That was going to be my question. I'm sure that you're going to ask how do you acquire these properties, or like Deb just mentioned, do people leave those after they pass?
Yeah, as you can imagine, we like it to be donated because land is expensive, and ideal habitat like beautiful hardwood forest, old growth forest is expensive. It can be $5,000 an acre. And when you think about how we protect almost 10,000 acres, that adds up fast. So people donate it. A lot of people will add it in their will. We love when people do that.
We're sad that they die.
Yeah,
but we love that,
thank you for clarifying. That part is sad. But a lot of those people who do that are people we have developed relationships with for 20 years or more, and then one day we find out that they've passed away, and obviously that's a loss for Sycamore people, staff and volunteers, but then we found out that they've left this legacy. So a lot of people you'll see named preserves, like the Amy Weingartner Brannigan Peninsula Preserve was named supported with a gift by her family after she passed away at a young age of cancer. The Jeremy K. Oakley Preserve. It's really cool how people will memorialize people they love with those.
I mean, it's an amazing way to leave a legacy. That's just, really interesting. And then in addition to owning the land, do you also put easements or restrictive easements on properties as well?
Yeah, so the kind of 2 ways that we protect land are we own it, which means we own it forever, no matter what, and we'll steward it, which means we take care of it. So we do active restoration projects, removing invasives, planting trees, building trails. But people can also maintain their land in private ownership and put an easement on it, which is also in perpetuity. So if you have a farm and you want it to be organic practices only forever, and you got these loser kids who aren't going to take care of it, then you might pass it on to them. But these restrictions will stay, and we're legally bound to protect them. Or you could sell it, and the person who buys it has to uphold those standards. And if not, we've never had to take legal action, but technically we could.
Yeah. And I thought that was a really interesting thing that a lot of people maybe don't understand. I was involved with Bloomington Restorations on their board for a long time, and they do the same thing with homes, that you can work with them to put restrictive covenants on your home if it's historic in nature, that you can't change it without Bloomington Restoration saying, yes, that's okay, that still meets our standards and that kind of thing. So it's a way to protect your home. And so it's similar with the land. It's a way to protect your land and make sure that, whatever doesn't come in and start to drill and rip it apart and that kind of thing. So why is that important? Why is that land conservation important?
Well, I mean, I don't want to get preachy on climate change, but climate change is a big reason why preserving land matters. Preserving trees and protecting waterways is hugely important for just the future of the earth. But specifically our water quality today, it really matters. That's why we focus on Bean Blossom Creek, because protecting riparian borders, which is just a fancy word for the borders along waterways.
We use that word in real estate. You're the first person I've ever met who knows what riparian rights means.
We use that in conservation. But protecting riparian borders, protecting water at all, like Lake Monroe, is hugely important for our drinking water. Not to mention all the benefits it has for wildlife and hiking, and what would Bloomington be without Lake Monroe?
Right.
Right. So conservation is just massively important. Protecting big tracts of land matters a lot. So we call them habitat corridors. You think of animals that need to migrate, like little migratory songbirds or whooping cranes, which is an endangered species. Bobcats need a lot of land. The more land you can connect to protect, the safer they are and the more the species will thrive.
Interesting. So what are some of the biggest properties that you have?
Well, our single biggest property, I guess, our biggest project is the Bean Blossom Creek area.
Okay.
And that's just because it's part of the White River watershed, which means it feeds into the White River, which is huge in our part of the state.
Yeah.
So we acquire a lot of land there. That was where our first parcel was 29 years ago. Time flies.
Yeah.
But we also have Columbia Mine was a big acquisition for us. I think that's 1,200 acres. Bean Blossom Creek is over 1,500 now.
Okay. Columbia Mine is in the southern India.
That's part of the Patoka River National Wildlife Refuge. It's in
down there by French Lick. Is that on the way to?
I think so.
Yeah. Patoka's past, past
to French Lick, and I don't gamble, but
I don't either. There's a water park down there.
Water park.
Water park. Sorry,
I've been to Paoli too. Yeah. So Columbia Mine's part of Patoka, and I forget which counties that's part of. But that's like a huge recovered mine actually that we've restored, and that there's been some really cool projects there. We got lakes built on there, and a lot of migratory animals come through there too.
So let's back up a little bit and talk about how Sycamore Land Trust started 29 years ago.
Yeah, it was started actually by the Sassafras Audubon Society. There's always people who are wanting to protect little parcels of land, and the land trust movement was really big in the U.S. in the 80s and 90s. So people from Sassafras and from SPIA got together and just said, we need to protect this one parcel that we really care about. So they got together, they formed a board, and for 10 years it was all volunteer. And then we hired our first executive director in 2000, I think.
And what was that first parcel? Was that in Bean Blossom?
That was, it was part of Bean Blossom
Creek.
Actually, if you look at our website, we just released our newsletter a couple weeks ago. It's a big print thing that I do 3 times a year. And there's a huge write-up on Bean Blossom Creek and protecting it, and a big project that we've got there now.
Yeah, and I want to talk about that in the second segment because I have a perfect segue. But anyway, I was very proud of myself to craft this perfect segue. So, right, exactly. Right. Okay, so so then you kind of went full-time with an executive director in 2000, and you've just grown from there. Mm-hmm. Where do you get most of your funding? I know the majority of the land comes via donation.
Well, we aim for that. Now, we're pretty strategic about looking at parcels that we want to acquire. A lot of it is like filling in a puzzle. So, especially if we're looking at places around Yellowwood, we've got a really big property in Brown County that's 600 acres. It's called the Laura Hare Nature Preserve at Downey Hill. All our preserves have long names. A lot of them do. Yeah. But we buy land too, or we'll get bargain sales. A lot of people are really generous. They'll sell us their land at half price, which, as you can imagine, is a big
right. Well, and donation. They probably get a tax write-off for the other half. So that certainly people listening who have land, there is a benefit there too.
Yeah, you get a tax write-off. I mean, since we're a 501c3, you get it for donating, bargain sales, easements. So your question was?
I don't even remember anymore, but I have a new question.
Let's move on then.
All right. So, are all of the land publicly accessible? All of the lands that you have,
as much as it can be. Technically it's privately owned. That's kind of what land trusts were made to do, is protect land that the government isn't protecting or can't protect. It's easier for us to make a deal than the government is. We just take less time. So we have 16 public nature preserves. Which means they're easy to get to. There's parking lot information on our website, usually driving directions, because sometimes they're out in the middle of nowhere. We do have less accessible preserves, and then our land that's not accessible would be if there's just not a road going to it. Maybe the farmer who owns the plot next to it gave us an easement on their land because they have their own private road, or we have an old growth forest in Owen County that's just, the habitat is too sensitive and important. We don't want to let we can't just let anybody go to it. People will be so thrilled to see these old trees that we have to be careful. Also, there's no road that goes to it.
So the ones listed on the website that I was looking at, those are the ones that are accessible. And like I said, a few of those are you kind of park, in the neighborhood. But I think what's always intimidated me, one of the things we talk about a lot on this show is what are the barriers that keep people from taking advantage of whatever? And some of the, I'm like, can I park here or should I because you're trying to invite people in, but you don't want to disrupt and, plow down a whole bunch and put up a parking lot.
Right. So a few of our most popular places have parking lots, but other places it's easy, like Porter West and western side of the county is you just park on the street. Really, there's a teeny tiny lot, but it doesn't get busy enough to really need a parking lot. And if we made a 40-car parking lot, there are a few preserves that would fill up potentially, or they could. And we want to be respectful of the environment. I mean,
So that's a way you can control.
Yeah.
But you definitely encourage people to check out the preserves.
Oh, yeah.
And that was, I think, my biggest takeaway that I want people to take away from this show, because there's actually a preserve that's not far behind my house. I live south near Harrodsburg, and there's a cedar preserve down there, and we're always kind of like, can we go on that? Are we going to get shot?
No, you can definitely go there. Definitely no shooting.
That's what I would think too. Like the one I was thinking of, like I always see that sign and I think, oh, that's like almost like sacred ground. Like I'm not going to go, but I would, like you're like kind of looking from the street going, I wonder what that's like if you can.
And so what I think is so cool is that, here we live in this, county, and we have parks everywhere, and we've talked about that, but we have hiking trails basically all over through the Sycamore Land Trust works too. That's just like, we should be taking advantage of those.
Are you asking me to go hiking
I'm
with
just
you
saying,
this
I
summer?
think it'd be good for our glutes.
I think so.
That's all I'm saying.
Well, and I gotta say, it's not as intimidating, and I love hiking, so, we have a different mindset of that, but we try to make it less intimidating just because so many people who aren't familiar with being outdoors a lot think that they have to have the right gear, or they have to know what they're doing, or they have to know the tree species, or there'll be snakes. I can't promise there won't be snakes, but you probably won't see a bobcat.
Or that you'll get lost.
Yeah, and if you stay on the trail at our preserves, you won't get lost.
And the trails are pretty well marked.
Oh, they're really well marked. We're out there. If a tree falls on it, we're going to take a chainsaw and cut that part of the tree out,
Yeah.
They're well marked. The parking lots are marked. And there's information on our website. So, it's easy to find, and you don't have to worry too much about those things. And we're also super accessible. If people just want to give us a call and say, hey, is this a hard trail? Or are my kids going to like it? Is my grandma going to be able to walk it?
That's so important, and I just want to encourage that. We hike a lot. We go to Maine every summer, and we hike there. And I remember one trail that we did. I went out, found this. I don't even know where I found it, but it was on an island, and it was marked with blue. You go out on some rocks for a period of time, and you're like, I'm just on. There's rocks as far as I can see, and you have to look for these little blue paint marks to guide you in the right direction.
That sounds so
we had a few times where we were like, I don't know if this is right or not. And then you hear thunder in the background as usual. And you're like, okay, well then. So that was.
Oof, yeah.
So it's not going to be like that. You're going to be able to find your way really, really easily. And I know some of them, I think the Porter West Preserve is pretty flat.
Yeah, now Porter West is flat in certain parts, and then you can also take the hilly direction. But we have all of our trails are pretty well identified on our website, and we have a free nature preserve guide that we'll mail you if you just request it on our website, and that has a whole key for is it a dirt trail? Is it a what else can we have? A gravel trail? Is it grass? Is it a boardwalk? And is it hilly, and how hilly? So
awesome.
And the question in my head is can I get Wi-Fi out there? Because what if I'm what if it's okay, I'm seriously lost. Because that would be me.
Yeah.
That would be me getting lost in an easily marked trail.
Then you need to make sure that someone knows where you're going and what time you'll be home. And so if you're not, I will come find you.
All right.
I will go out and yell at the edge of the forest, Karen. We'll find you. Don't worry. All right, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to do my fabulous segue I'm very proud of, and then we're also going to talk about other events, maybe some volunteer opportunities, how if people wanted to get involved with Sycamore Land Trust, they can. So stick around. You're at home in Bloomington.
Hi, this is Karen Rastel with Ruoff Home Mortgage. Did you know there are low or no down payment options available? If you're interested in buying a home but not sure about your options, contact me today at 812-606-7653. Together we'll make your dreams of home ownership come true. Ruoff Home Mortgage is an Indiana corporation licensed by the Indiana Department of Financial Institutions. This is not an offer for extension of credit or a commitment to lend. All loans must satisfy company underwriting guidelines. Equal housing lender. NMLS number 141868.
This is your Real Estate Realist. Practical advice on buying and selling real estate based on my experience closing over 800 home sales. Condo living is an option a lot of people consider. Whether downsizing or first-time home buyers, condos can offer amenities and benefits not found in single-family home ownership. If you're thinking condo living might be for you, here are some thoughts to consider. Number 1, ask if a condo is a good fit for your lifestyle. Your neighbors are close, sometimes above or below you. Do you have a noisy dog or like to play on your drum set? Do you like gardening as a relaxing hobby? If you answered yes, condo living may not be for you, so be sure to think it through thoroughly. Number 2, what are the association's finances? All condos are governed by a homeowner association. You have the right to request to review the homeowner association finances prior to closing on a condo. You can write that into your offer to purchase. You want to make sure that the association has adequate reserves for repairs and that the annual budget makes sense and isn't negative. And number 3, what is the particular community like? When you buy a condo, you're basically going into business with the other owners. Your dues and theirs create the income for a nonprofit business, and all of the owners are responsible for managing those funds through the association's board of directors. So you should feel good about the people you are going into business with, that they share the same vision for the community. Attend an HOA meeting, ask a board member to coffee, check out the community's webpage or social media. Most importantly, plan on getting involved when you are an owner. It's the best way to preserve your property value. Condo living can be great. I lived in a condo for a bit, and it brought me a huge deal of freedom and camaraderie. A little bit of knowledge and research up front can make your condo decision one of the best you've ever made. For more information, check out my Real Estate Today podcast, number 8. You can find it on YouTube, iTunes, and my website, www.athomeinbloomington.com.
My name is Brittany, and Deb Tomorrow is my realtor. She helped me buy my first home. I enjoyed working with Deb because she was patient, thorough, and made the experience fun. Deb should be your realtor too. And now, back to the show.
Welcome back to At Home in Bloomington. Before we get back to our guest, Abby Henkel with Sycamore Land Trust, for our Facebook Follow segment for this episode, it seems only right to point out another project that is being done by Lauren Wood Builders. And the reason I bring up Lauren Wood Builders is because he has been instrumental, Lauren Wood, in several Sycamore Land Trust projects and is a big supporter. And he's been on our show, this show once, and on our old show a couple of times. Mm-hmm. So he's been a big supporter of our podcasting as well. So I want you to, if you're not already following Bloomington Co-Housing on Facebook, that's a project that Lauren Wood is involved in. It's really a fascinating project. We featured it on episode 16 of At Home in Bloomington. So if you want to listen more about that, it's probably not what you think it is. And that's why I really want to encourage people to check it out. Mm-hmm. But speaking of Lauren Wood Builders, he's been doing a lot of work at Bean Blossom Bottoms location, right?
Yeah.
And so that location is not currently open?
Correct. I can tell you a little bit about the project and what Lauren's crew has been doing there. So Bean Blossom Bottoms is an incredible wetland preserve, and it's got a boardwalk trail that was built like 10 years ago, basically all volunteer. It's wood. As you can imagine, wood in a wetland tends to break down. It gets really slippery. Bean Blossom is flooded a lot of the year because it's a wetland, but that also means it's a super important habitat, and we love to connect people with it. So the whole boardwalk trail is like 1.5 miles, and it takes you all throughout the preserve. It's really beautiful. You can see all kinds of wildlife.
Rachel goes out there to birdwatch all the time, our producer. So
yeah, and it's a fantastic place to go birdwatching. You can see really cool species, and we've got some of them listed on our website. But the boardwalk trail has like really it's deteriorated, mm-hmm. which you would expect with wood. So last year we started a massive project to tear it all out and replace it all with this super sturdy plastic decking material. Mm-hmm. Turns out Indiana weather is unpredictable, and so it's taken the project a long time. We're pretty close to completion, and
but probably flooded right now.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
From the rain that we've had.
Yeah. Nuts. So, and the week before, like you just can't. We've torn it all out, and we're putting it all in now. We're nearly done, but you just can't drive the metal poles 5 feet into the ground when there's like 3 feet of water.
Oh, wow.
And if you go to our website, I've got videos of people like walking through, like breaking through the ice to build.
Oh, wow.
So Lauren's got a lead carpenter working with our mm-hmm. land stewardship manager on finishing that project.
And it's amazing to think, one of the things we always think about when we're like hiking in Maine on some of these trails is and they'll build like little steps, and you think, how did they get all the materials this far out? Like they have to carry it in. That's a huge part of why it takes so long too.
Yeah, so, definitely.
But definitely, so you don't have sometime this summer for sure?
I guess I can't promise anything, but hopefully before the summer.
Okay.
They're moving us like pretty quickly. It really just depends on the day. We actually like have some volunteer days that people can help with that too, but mostly it's led by a small crew of workers.
Okay. And how can they find out if someone's interested in the volunteer days?
So the volunteer days are listed on our website, sycamorelandtrust.org/events. But if somebody like just wants to come and help another day, they can contact us. Just email info@sycamorelandtrust.org and kind of get connected with that.
Awesome. Because, this would be a really good one for us to start on because boardwalks are pretty easy to walk on.
Well, she mentioned during
you could
break.
probably do it in heels.
I think this is the one during break that Abby mentioned, like, there's dragonflies. Is that this boardwalk?
That's
Okay. I love dragonflies.
All right. Well,
we'll do that. It's a mile and a half. Well,
we can do that.
It actually is super safe. Like before, it was like super slippery. And I went out there in November. It was covered in ice, and you could just walk right across it without falling on your butt.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah. No dragonflies this time of year. Sorry.
Yeah. Awesome. So, and I suppose following your Sycamore Land Trust on Facebook would be another way to kind of have it pop into your mind and say, oh, it's open now, because I'm sure you're going to broadcast that everywhere.
Yeah, and if you want to like make sure you get the news right away, obviously Facebook and Instagram are a great place to go. You can sign up for our e-news because I'll send it the day that we know the opening date. It'll be on there.
Awesome. So in the first segment, we were talking about something, and not surprisingly, we digressed and forgot what we were talking about, but we remembered now, and that is, how do you get your funding?
So the majority of our funding is private funding. Thanks for asking. So that comes from major gifts from individuals and family foundations, but then also just regular members. A lot of people think with conservation that you have to like own land or be super rich, but our basic membership starts at $40 a year, and that, in addition to helping protect land and like protect the preserves that you can go hike at, you get our newsletter, which I think is amazing.
I read it. It was good.
Thank you. Oh my gosh.
There was some drama with a bird and that whole thing. Yeah,
exactly.
No, I read it. It was good. Yeah.
Also, we have a fantastic designer, so it's just like a super beautiful production. But you get that, and you get like a little decal and free admission to hikes, and we have dozens of events a year. So membership, I mean, I think it's not a lot to help contribute to protecting land. So that's where a lot of our funding comes from. And
tell me about some of the events that you do.
We have all kinds of events. Some of them are tied to our environmental education program, which also goes into schools. So we'll have like weekday walkers hikes. Like we have a tree ID hike coming up that's actually already full. We've got 36 people signed up for that. And then we have our young adults group, Sycamore Branches. Actually, this week we've got a intro to winter camping kind of gear talk. It's free. We also do nature trivia with them, usually at Switchyard. And then just other random events, like there's some private member events, like member mixers, which are usually at Upland, and you just come and drink and hang out with other members. So yeah, there's stuff year round. Kind of gets you out in all seasons.
Right. So it's just, one of the things we've talked about from day one with this podcast is helping people find their community and recognizing that there's lots of ways to define community, and there's lots of, and you can be involved in multiple communities, but there is this community around land conservation. And when you have events and things like that, especially if you're new to town, it's a wonderful way to meet people and make some great connections, because you're meeting, some people are new and some people, when I look at your board of directors and auxiliary, there are people that have been, a rock in Bloomington, a huge foundation for furthering Bloomington for a very long time.
Yeah, oh my gosh, our board of directors is just fantastic. Yeah. And we do try to have a balance of different communities that people represent and years of experience, and you don't even have to be an expert in conservation to be on the board. You bring something special to it.
Right, as long as you have some passion about it and you think it's important.
Yeah.
Now, do you do anything with like the elementary schools, or because I'm trying to think, I have a 6th grader, and I'm trying to think if he's ever gone on a field trip or anything, and I'm drawing a blank.
So what school does he go to?
Highland Park.
Okay, and where did he go? That's an elementary school, right?
Yes.
Oh yeah, we've definitely done programs there. What we do is take programs to schools normally.
Okay.
Last year we had 6,800 participants in our programs,
oh, wow.
And these are totally free to schools. So at last year, actually at Highland Park, I remember doing like a planting of native plants that the kids had grown in their classrooms. And then they planted them in these little circles around in some garden area outside. And we do that. We do maple syrup making programs. Sometimes we have an education director who brings these programs to schools.
Okay.
And he'll just work with a teacher to figure out what they want to do. Sometimes he'll go to a classroom 10 times in a semester. So like Unionville Elementary, we work with very closely. Harmony School, Montessori School in Evansville, a lot of schools in Bloomington.
Okay. So yeah, but it would probably be hard to pull up a bus to one of these preserves and unload 300 kids and have a complete stampede.
Well, and it's also easier on the teachers to just bring the program to them. So that program is funded. We actually just hit our endowment of $1.3 million was our goal. So that program is funded through that. So that's why we can bring this free to schools.
So if there's teachers out there who have interest or doing some sort of section in their classroom that they think it's applicable, they could reach out and
Oh yeah, absolutely. We'd love to talk to them. And one thing about our environmental education program is we really focus just on getting people comfortable in nature. It's not about learning all the bird species. It's not about just focusing on science. It's kind of incorporating all the things that kids need to be healthy, like observation skills and art and health and culture and history. So yeah, we definitely like to hear from teachers.
Observation skills, Karen.
Yeah. Well, while Abby's been talking, I was thinking about when I was, I can't remember if it was like 7th grade. I feel like 7th grade was like pivotal, but we had to do like a leaf collection. And I'm like, I have no idea. We had to like collect so many different leaves. And I remember my dad taking me about 45 minutes away from where we grew up. And he knew like every...
Really?
Yes. I was shocked. Like we walked through, it was a state park. And I was like, I can't believe my dad and I are going to this park, and we were walking through, and he's like, grab that one. And I'm like, okay, because they all looked the same to me, I swear. And he's like, that one, and would give me a history about the leaf. It was like the best project.
Where did he learn that?
I have no idea.
Interesting.
See, you still remember that.
I do remember that.
Later, so
I do remember that. I don't remember any of the leaves, but I'm sure if, I kept that leaf collection forever.
Yeah.
Forever.
I think every kid in Indiana, I think that's part of a requirement. I feel like I maybe did mine in 4th grade or 5th grade or something like that, but I feel like we all had to do leaf
But that's what I was thinking. I was like, how does he know all this? And where did he learn it? And why does he still,
And look how useful it was for him, right?
Absolutely.
Create a moment with his daughter. Oh. So what other, you talked a little bit about volunteer opportunities with the Bean Blossom, but what other volunteer opportunities do you have?
Really, there's whatever somebody wants to do. We can try to find something that'll fit their skills and interest. There's obviously like the harder labor tasks like building the boardwalk or chainsaw skills, cutting trees out of trail, like not cutting down a tree, but if a tree falls in the forest, nobody hears it,
Right, exactly.
There's a lot of pulling invasive species, planting trees and bushes in the spring. But there's also like administrative tasks. If I do a big mailing, like a fundraising mailing, we might mail something to almost 2,000 people. And so we need help in the office preparing those. And we've had all ages help with those. If you can write an address, you can help with that.
Right.
And there's other sorts of things like event planning, being on our development committee, helping us fundraise. So yeah, if you're interested, all that info is on our website. You can kind of get some more information on each area of expertise.
Cool. You mentioned chainsaws. When you acquire a piece of land, it seems like there would have to be a fair amount of preparation that has to be done, especially to turn it into a nature preserve. And I want to take Eurus out to Porter West Preserve because he was a landscaper, and that was a clean dump site. So it's where all the landscapers would dump their leaves and, because you got to do something with them. And so they would take them out to Dave Porter's site. And so he knows that site well from driving around, many, many years ago and doing that. And it's now reverted back to nature when Dave passed away and he left it to the Sycamore Land Trust. But there's still, there's trails that are, have been carved out and things like that. So what goes into, how long does it take for you to prepare something to be a nature preserve?
Well, and that's a good question. Technically, the term nature preserve to us just means parcel of land that's been protected, but I'm guessing you mean like publicly accessible?
Yeah, with trails and that sort of thing.
Yeah, so that really depends. Usually the Hoosier Hikers Council is a group of awesome volunteers, most of them retired folks who get together once a week and build a trail. And that's just hard labor. So that can take, years. Especially because they can only go once a week. Some people go out in the middle of the week, but they have to haul all their tools out there.
Right.
But other things that we do, for example, like if something's completely overrun with invasive species,
honeysuckle.
Honeysuckle is everywhere.
Really bad.
And there's also autumn olive is another one, multiflora rose. These are things that can really take over a preserve. And the big problem with that is they choke out native species, and that just throws the ecosystem off entirely. And that, I mean, you think about one species, let's say, going extinct and the repercussions that can have hundreds of years down the road or 20 years down the road. We try to address that now. So there can be a lot of work that goes into it. But our goal when we talk about stewardship, which is what this is, taking care of the land, is just letting the land be what it wants to be. So if we get a farm, like a property that used to be a farm and it flooded a lot, that probably means it wants to be at least a partial year wetland, or a swampy kind of hardwood forest. So we'll just let it revert to that.
Right.
So it's kind of just letting nature do its job. It doesn't really need a lot of help from humans. Okay. Nature wants us to leave it alone.
Yeah, interesting. So what's your favorite site to visit?
My favorite is a hidden gem. It's called Dilcher-Turner Canyon Forest.
In Greene County.
Nailed it.
Yep.
It is beautiful, and it is a canyon and a forest. And it's got the seasonal creek, and the canyon, you walk up to these like rock cliffs, and they're just beautiful. You don't expect them. And it's just a nice windy, hilly trail. It's challenging, I'd say. So if you're not comfortable hiking, or if you have trouble walking, I wouldn't recommend it.
Bring your inhaler.
Yeah, bring your inhaler. Yeah, your walking sticks. But it's just beautiful, and there's never anybody else there.
Yeah.
And how long is that trail? I'm sorry.
I didn't say, and I don't remember. Okay. Couple miles, I think.
Yeah, and it's off of 54, kind of near Hendricksville.
Have you been out there?
I have not. I looked it up on the map.
Look at you. I should have done that.
I do my research, and I looked up because I was like, we had the Sculpture Trails, which is out in Greene County, on the show a little while ago, and so I was just wondering how it compared in terms of location. As we're sending people out to Greene County to do hiking and that sort of thing.
It sounds beautiful. I mean, like you were mentioning, like you're walking up and then you see these rock cliffs. Like I would never think that.
The pictures on the website too, I mean, are pretty amazing. So it's funny because I think sometimes we fly, hours and go out to the East Coast, or even like there's places down in Southern Ohio that we've gone hiking, when there's places right here. Yes. 10 minutes out my door that, we could explore and get the same vibe. So I just really want to encourage people. So you think that's your favorite site, and also probably the biggest secret? Do you think there are the most overlooked or underappreciated site?
Well, that one definitely needs more love, I think. And I don't know if it was during the break, but the Cedars Preserve that we were talking about is beautiful. And it just starts off with a big old creek. And that one's just, it's lovely, and it's out on Popcorn Road or something. It's kind
Ketchum,
of it's that's a really underappreciated one, I'd say.
Okay, and that's down south near Harrodsburg, so you just go 37 south, turn on Ketchum.
I'll swing by and pick you up.
It's just right there.
Real quick. You gotta be willing to go on some bumpy road, and you'll always see cows. I always see them when I go out there.
Yes,
I love cows.
Yes, my house is surrounded by cattle fields, so that's how we roll down there in southern Monroe County for sure. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope that it's inspired us. We're gonna definitely hit the boardwalk this summer.
We will as soon as we know it's
open. As soon as it
open,
we're
gonna
put
post your photos.
Yeah.
Sycamore Land Trust.
Oh, perfect. We'll put some flat shoes on and go for a walk. All right. So sycamorelandtrust.org is the website. Check them out on Instagram and on Facebook. Follow them so you can keep up with all of the news. Thank you again for joining us. And check us out on our next episode. You are at home in Bloomington.
Got a show idea? I'd love to hear it. And be sure to contact me for all your real estate needs and questions too. You can email me at deb@realrealestatetoday.com. And follow me on Facebook at Deb Tomorrow Realtor. To contact Karen Rastel for all your mortgage needs, call 812-606-7653 or log on to ruoff.com and go to the Bloomington Center. Thanks to all the Bloomington people who make production of At Home in Bloomington possible. Special thanks to superstar producer Rachel Gregorio, digital guru Cynthia Hogan at Monster Digital Marketing for website design and hosting, and video genius Wes Lasher in the production house for engineering the show.